Hello, and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. My name is Ollie. I use any pronouns, and you can find me on social media at OllieFresh. That's fresh with a PH.
And my name is Klaudia. My pronouns are she, her, and you can find me on social media at Klaudia Says, K-A-L-U-D-I-A Says. Welcome to season 5.
We made it, guys. We made it all the way to season 5. We only 10 more well, technically 11 more seasons to go.
Last time we talked about how it was the beginning of the end. I feel like these two episodes are really the beginning of the end because these two are pretty good.
I feel like they have good parts. I feel like the first episode I think is better than the second episode.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I really do agree that this is like where it's like, okay, they're still pretty decent. Like, they're still decent episodes, but something has shifted.
Yeah. So something.
And like,
yeah.
I think that it just becomes, we've gotten to the point where things start to get, because I mean, it's Supernatural, and we've talked about how like the last seasons were kind of convoluted. But now it's like, even if the writing is good and even if the overarching story is interesting and thematic, it becomes so convoluted that it's like, well, what the fuck is even the point of any? Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, basically, it's very, what are you talking about? Also, just a quick warning. Unfortunately, we will have to discuss Wincest once again on this podcast, and it will not be a joke. It will be a part of what occurs in the episode.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to warn everybody ahead of time, and it's so jarring.
It was maybe... We will get into it.
Yeah.
We won't... Let's not spoil it. Let's not spoil the Wincest, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need to vomit.
I'm changing my stance. I think Wincest is funny. I don't ship it. I do think it's weird, but I also think it's kind of hilarious.
So this is season 5, episode 1, Sympathy for the Devil. And they only do the Carry On Wayward Son, the Road So Far thing at the end of a season, but at the beginning of the season, they usually also do a Road So Far. And this one at the beginning, they do to AC/DC Thunderstruck. And that took me aback because I'm on Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders TikTok. Where at this point I've watched so many fucking TikToks about it and their show that I know the choreography at this point. So I was just, in my brain, it just like came to me in a haze and I was like, Dean Winchester Thunderstruck choreography.
I would love to see, those edits that people will do where they will take an image of a person, like either a real person or character or something, and like put it over a 3D model of a pre-choreographed dance.
Yes!
I need to do that with Dean Winchester. I'm also going to be so real. I have no idea what choreography you're talking about, but I do think it's hilarious.
The image of Dean Winchester doing this choreography came to me in a vision.
It looks like a cheerleader dance.
Yeah, I needed you to know what vibe I had in my brain so that we can move forward with that.
I had a feeling. I mean, I've seen cheerleaders at NFL games before.
Yeah.
Trust.
If someone can make a Fortnite model of Dean Winchester and then have him doing the Thunderstruck choreography, that'd be great.
You sound like a Zoomer right now. You think that the good old fashioned 3D artists need to stoop to a Fortnite model? A Fortnite model?
I just think a Fortnite model would be funny.
Yeah, but I don't think you know what a Fortnite model is. A Fortnite model is nothing.
I know what a Fortnite model is.
No, bitch, it's called a Fortnite skin.
Okay, but we're talking about... I know it's called a Fortnite skin, but like... I meant because it's a model. Because it's...
Why wouldn't you make a 3D model?
You
don't need to make a Fortnite model. You said make a Fortnite model. What does that mean?
I'm getting...
You sound like a fucking idiot.
Sorry. Okay. Anyways.
I just want to make it known I'm not actually angry. I was being angry for the bit, and then I got lost in the sauce. I'm sorry, Klaudia.
No, I know. It happens so often.
You see, this is the thing. Anytime we are mean to each other on this podcast, if you're ever like, wow, they're really not nice to each other sometimes, mostly it's me being mean to Klaudia, but just know that it's part of the bit. And if she goes on Twitter and tries to call me out, she's just joking.
Anyways, I don't know how we got to the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, but
Thunderstruck.
Doing
The road
Thunderstruck
so far.
But basically they do a Thunderstruck montage, and I'll say this. They're good at a montage. They made me excited again. I was like, all right, Supernatural, let's go. And then I was like, fuck, no, this is a bad show. Fuck. Shit. Okay. We literally cut to, like, it picks up right where the last season left off, which was literally the gate opening and the light of Lucifer coming through, and it's actually kind of like seamless with the scene showing in the thing. Oh, and also we have a new title card, which is now Supernatural, with a bunch of like blood flowing and like water around it. It's kind of dumb, I'm not gonna lie. It doesn't have the sauce.
I don't mind it, honestly. I like it better than last season's, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's just aggressively fine. Sam, if you remember, was tricked by Ruby and everyone into drinking a bunch of demon blood so that he could be strong enough to kill Lilith. But surprise, surprise, killing Lilith is the final seal. So he was tricked into doing it. And breaking the last of the 66 seals on Lucifer. So the hole in the ground of this convent, because it was in a convent in Maryland, starts opening up, and there's more and more light, and the brothers, they get locked into this room. The doors are closed. They're like, the noise is overtaking them. Just as they're about to be smote, the screen goes white, and suddenly we see a cartoon playing on a screen. A cartoon of, oh my god, what's his name?
Yosemite Sam.
It's Yosemite Sam, which is hilarious. It's the devil talking to Yosemite Sam, which is so, yeah, we get it. You guys are owned by Warner Brothers. Both because that's how you get all the needle drops, and also this. And it's playing, and then it zooms out, and it's playing on a screen on a plane. And then we see Sam and Dean, they're cowering, and they realize that they are sitting on a plane. And they're like, what? What's going on? How did we get on a plane? And they're literally like, what the hell? We cut to, like, the cockpit and the pilot, and the pilot's like, okay, like, we're coming in on descent, everything looks good, whatever.
No, he's not. I have something to say. As a Marylander,
I
have some very important things to say here. So it's very important for everyone to know that these are big Hollywood writers, and they don't know anything about the great state of Maryland. So basically, we see Sam and Dean, and the pilot makes an announcement that's like, and we're passing over Ilchester right now, and right up here you'll see Ellicott City. First of all, it's pronounced Ellicott City. Second of all, Ellicott City is not like a big, like, sprawling city. Like, there aren't like skyscrapers. It's not really like a big city or anything. It's just called Ellicott City. Like,
yeah,
because it's technically a city, but it's pretty small. It's nothing that you would really be able to see from an airplane. Also, here's the thing. Ilchester has maybe 5,000 people. It's like a very small area in Howard County. If you are on a plane, no pilot is announcing, we're passing over Ilchester. But the other thing, if a pilot knows enough about Maryland geography to be like, we're passing over Ilchester, but doesn't know how to pronounce Ellicott City correctly, no, this is wrong. And I have a bone to pick, and I am writing a letter to, I believe, Robert Singer, who directed this episode. Please give me a call, respond to my messages. I have a bone to pick with you.
Yeah.
Anyway, manifesto over. and realistically, did they just say that because that's where they were, and they wanted to convey that they were just near where they were on the ground? Probably.
Yeah.
But I don't give a fuck. I'm here to complain on my Supernatural podcast.
As is natural and right. So he says this fuck ass shit, and then suddenly we see through the windows of the cockpit a giant white light sprout up from the ground, and it's like right near where the plane is, and the plane starts to go down, and Sam and Dean are like, oh my god. And then like the masks come down, whatever, and the plane is crashing. Clearly they have flown over where Lucifer is coming out. Which I just want to say, they're going to play fast and loose with the angel lore that they just established here. Because it's like, he can't manifest physically. He needs a vessel, which we'll get into. But it's like, so what's coming out of the... We can't get into this. None of it makes sense.
I mean, my thought was maybe, like, it's his true form. A lot like how it was, like, how Cass had his true form when he was trying to communicate with Dean in Lazarus Rising. But couldn't. That was my thought, but, like... I don't know.
I don't know.
I thought maybe it was just like a representation of the cage he was in being broken.
Yeah, I guess.
It's just like the energy pulse of him escaping.
Yeah. That's just what happens in Maryland. And they did say they were on the way to Baltimore, which I thought was funny.
I'm like, are they, girl, I just don't, flying it, BWI doesn't deserve this.
So... they cut to, clearly they landed safely, don't know. We cut to Sam and Dean are in a rental car.
It's very, okay, that was crazy, because they were like, the plane was actively going down, and then it just cuts to them in the car, so I guess they made it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess it was fine.
I don't know. And
another Maryland lore thing that is gonna piss me off. I have to say.
Oh, they are in this car, and they're like, oh girl, how did we get here? And they're like, was it
no, they're listening to the radio.
Oh, sorry.
And I did write down a couple things that they said on the radio.
Oh god!
So this starts, they turn the radio on. Governor O'Malley urged calm, and that an empty convent is not a likely target for a terrorist attack. Martin O'Malley, former governor of Maryland, who I have met personally. All Marylanders do know each other. Fun fact, he used to play guitar in a bunch of bars before he became the governor. Anyway, but there's that, and then Sam like changes the channel, and then they're like, we hear snippets of radio stations as he's flipping through, and one's like, the swine flu is North Korea's nuclear program, and like it's implied that all of these are happening because of the apocalypse, and then Dean's like, turn that shit off.
And then I just sat there and I was like, well, horrible news if they had just waited until 2024. Also, none of them switched to specifically a station 88.5, which if they're driving, I don't know where Chuck's house was, but at some point they were gonna be in the DMV area, and they were gonna have to listen. One of those was gonna be NPR. So I'm just saying. Where's our WAMU representation? Oh wow, we are doxing ourselves. Hi, we're doxing ourselves from the DMV. Every time they're in the DMV on this show, we rip this shit to shreds. Anyways,
we lost the plot.
Well, it's Supernatural. Is there any? So they are in this fuck-ass rental car, and he's like, turn that shit off. And they start to be like, okay, girl, so how did we survive that? Was it the angels that saved us? Like, it's gotta be. And why did they save us? And what are we gonna do? And Dean's like, well, and times are here. I guess we gotta hunker down and figure it out. And I'm like, this is so Supernatural that it's like, well, the apocalypse came because they fucked it up, and now they gotta just stall for time. I'm like, yeah, this happens a lot on this show. And they're just driving around like normal, I guess. Sam starts to be like, you know, I'm really sorry. Like, I was tricked and I shouldn't have done this, whatever. And Dean's like, shut the fuck up. We need to go find Cass. Now, if you remember, we left Cass with Chuck defending him. Not sure why because Chuck doesn't really need defense from his own Archangel.
He did it because he needed to go, like, they needed, in the finale, Cass and Dean needed to find out where Sam was, and Chuck, because he's a prophet, was the only one who knew where Sam was, so they had to go there and figure that out. And I think Cass went and then told Dean, so Dean could go find him.
Well, I don't know why the Archangel shows up. Like, he wasn't in danger.
Well, because I think they were like, well, Cass is a rogue element. We gotta get his ass.
Yeah, I guess. But the key thing here is that Dean said, we gotta go see Cass. He's like, the world is ending. Gotta see my baby girl. So they're on the way to Chuck's house, which I don't know what state it's in. They show up, house is in disarray. There's blood. There's shit everywhere. And they're like, oh my God. Then suddenly someone comes, they turn around, they hear a sound, and suddenly Chuck comes up behind Sam and hits him with a plunger in the head. And he's like, oh, and they're like, hey, like, it's us. And he's like, oh, are you okay? And Sam's like, well, you hit me with a plunger, so no.
He's like, well, I've got a headache, so yeah. Great, thank you.
And Dean is immediately like, and what happened to Destiel? And Chuck is like, the Archangel blew him apart. He's gone. And he's like, what do you mean he's gone? And they're like, well, I saw him, like, explode into light. And they're and Dean's like, huh. It's very dark for us.
Dean is literally like, no, this can't be happening. Like, there's no way he's dead. And then Chuck goes behind his ear, and out of his hair, he's like, what is this? And he pulls out a fucking tooth, like Cass's tooth that exploded. And he's like, I just pulled a human tooth out of my hair. Oh my God.
Yeah, which you're like, okay, usually the angel just kind of explodes into, like, soot or whatever, so I don't know why the vessel... none of this makes any sense, but sure, fine. Chuck is shaken, and they're like, okay, shit, and they're like, what do we do?
Because you know what? I'm like, Chuck, you have no right to act so freaked out after what you did to Job, okay?
God.
Let's be real.
When we say Chuck, we mean God. But at this point, either he doesn't know he's God. We don't know. It gets retconned. We've talked about this.
No, he's supposed to know he's God.
So he's acting this whole thing out.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, which makes him all the more of an asshole. So suddenly Chuck is like, I can sense them. And they're like, sense who? And he's like, the angels. And then they turn around and there's Zachariah with two guys behind him who are clearly also angels. And Zachariah's like, all right, Dean, it's time. Because Dean promised something to the angels. And Dean's like, no, girl, stop. And he's like, yeah, it's time for you to battle Lucifer. That's what you signed up for. And Lucifer is seeking a vessel. And once he does, you know, it's over for everybody, so let's get with the program. And Sam's like, why does he need a vessel? And Zachariah's like, well, he's an angel, so, and Dean's like, no, like, you helped jumpstart the apocalypse. And they're like, well, we just let it happen. And he's like, I don't think so. I think you lied. And Zachariah's like, well, Sam is responsible. And Dean, you had the chance to stop him and you failed. So, I don't know. And he's like, we're on the same side, so why can't we help each other? And Dean's like, absolutely fuck no. And then Zachariah looks at Dean's hand. Dean's hand is bleeding. And he's like, why are you bleeding? And Dean's like, because I prepared for you motherfuckers coming. And he pulls out the sliding door behind him. And he's already put an angel banishing sigil on it. And Zachariah's like, no! And he banishes him and the other angels. It kind of serves, honestly.
And then immediately after he says, I learned that from my friend Cass.
Well, I learned that from my friend Cass, you son of a bitch. I'm like, hello.
No, because this is also so sad, because this is the first time he's calling Cass his friend.
Like,
and not just like some guy I know who I have crazy sexual tension with.
Yeah. And let's just say the crazy sexual tension in this episode is crazy. They cut to, they're at a motel room, and Dean is already there, and Sam comes in with some hex bags, and he's like, hey, this will hide us from both angels and demons. I'm like, what kind of hex bag is that? And Dean's like, where'd you learn that? And how did you make it, and what from? And Sam's like, well, I learned it from Ruby. And Dean's like, we can't get into this. And Dean is like, okay, let's be for real. Are you feeling any after effects of the fact that you don't have any more demon blood? And Sam's like, no, like, whatever freed us and put us on that plane, like, I feel fine. I can't use my powers, but like, I feel fine. And Dean goes, some sort of angelic methadone. Oh god, this show is it's so Sam tries to talk to him about it. He tries to apologize, he tries to whatever, and Dean's like, there's nothing to talk about. You know, we freed Lucifer, and now we have to fix it, and that's what we do. And I'm like, and when has that worked out for you, hun? When has that worked out for you? Not digesting, not unpacking.
That being said, I can respect in the moment being like, we got other shit to do.
Yeah.
I know I'm just gonna get mad if we talk about it, so let's just move on for now.
Yeah. And Dean's like, we treat it like any other hunt. He's like, so what do we do first? And Sam's like, we figure out where the monster is. And he's like, yeah. We cut to a scene. It is dark in front of a suburban looking house. There's a gate in front, and there's a man. His name is Nick. He
played by one of the most insane Supernatural cast members.
God.
Played by Mark Pellegrino. Dude's Twitter's a fucking mess.
Yeah,
like,
this man is a mess. Just know, here's another cast member that we're gonna have things to say about.
Yeah, like, he's fucking crazy, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I guess it's good casting then for this. So, this man's name is Nick. We see him, he's entering his house at night. He looks very bedraggled, and suddenly, like, the leaves start to stir. There's a wind. The gate is, like, opening and closing a lot, whatever. And he's like, what is going on? And he goes into his house. And we cut to, he's now asleep in his bed. And he wakes up, and his bed is full of blood. And he's like, what the hell? And then he fully sits up, and the blood is gone. And he's like, okay, what's happening to me? And he looks very bedraggled. There's clearly something else wrong with him. And we cut. Clearly this man is starting to have hallucinations. There's something after him. Spoiler alert, it is Lucifer. And it's kind of a dark version of what started to happen to Jimmy Novak. When Destiel wanted to ask him to be his vessel. So then we cut to oh god, here we go, another character that I fucking hate. We cut to a grown woman in her bedroom on her Mac on her computer typing away. And she's typing away and saying what she's typing out loud in a crazed sort of way. And what she's typing is Wincest fan fiction. Dirty Wincest fan fiction.
And I need to express, like, how this scene goes down, because she is sitting there at her computer speaking aloud as she's writing this fan fiction, which is so crazy to me, because, like, I mean, everybody's written a little fan fiction in the day, but saying it out loud, Jesus Christ. And she's going, if it's wrong, I don't want to be right, Sam said as he caressed Dean's clavicle.
They put this in the show, okay? They put it in the show. And it will get worse from here. I want you to know. god, this is Becky. We hate Becky. Fuck Becky. Okay? Okay, now this part is something that is very confusing to me because she is writing on her computer and then suddenly she gets a call, some sort of voice call from some sort of program that has caller ID on her computer. And this is 2009. I don't know, this is AIM. I don't know. And it says Carver Edlund, which is the name of the pseudonym of Chuck, the writer of the Supernatural books in universe, which is a combination of the names of the producers of Supernatural. But basically, the author that she's a fan of is FaceTime calling her. And I'm like, how does it have caller ID? But okay. And so she answers it. And lo and behold, a video call with Chuck. And he's there. And he's like, hi, Becky. And she's like, oh my god, you know who I am? This really is Carver Edlund, my favorite author. And she's like freaking out.
And she says, oh my gosh, you must be calling me because I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest fan. You know, and she like says her username and everything. And she's like, you must know me from morethanbrothers.net.
Oh yeah, morethanbrothers.net. And like,
and he's like, right, okay, anyway.
And her username is like Sam Lover, whatever. It's like something hideous about Sam. That's
something many of you Tumblrinas would know about.
It's literally, they had to have just taken somebody's Tumblr username for this. Morethanbrothers.net.
Hang on.
Are you trying to go to morethanbrothers.net? I don't think you should. I don't. No.
It does redirect to a Warner Bros. Landing page.
No! They bought that URL. Oh, it's fucking vile.
Oh no.
Oh my god. Okay,
if you were gonna tell me that Supernatural had probably spent more money promoting Wincest than Destiel.
Also, Claire just texted me because they heard me recording and they said, because they watched the episode with me, they said that the username was Sam Liquor with some numbers.
Ew.
Yeah, likely thing for Becky to do.
To be fair, she thinks that he's a fictional character, so I'm like, okay, whatever. It's when she finds out that they're real is when it becomes a problem.
It gets a little, yeah, but we hate her ass. I love how the words "is writing some Wincest fanfiction" are in the Supernatural wiki. Like, anyways, Chuck is like, hi, I need you to do something for me. And she's like, oh my god, like, have you read my letters, whatever? And he's like, I need you to do something for me. I need you to get a message to Sam and Dean. And in this moment, she does have a good response where she's like, all right, like, I know I'm like a big fan or whatever, but you don't have to make fun of me, whatever. And he's like, no, they're real. It's all real. And her immediate response after that is, oh, I knew it. Like, she was just trying to be normal, but then she's like, oh, I knew it. And he's like, and he's basically is like, listen, you seem like the only person who would believe me and not think I'm insane. And he's like, you need to pass a message on to them. Clearly they left him. And
one other thing I just remembered is when Sam and Dean show up at Chuck's house initially and he sees them, he's shocked to see them. Not just because he's like, oh, like, I'm surprised you're in my house, but he was like, this isn't how I thought it was going to happen. Like, this isn't how it was supposed to happen, basically.
Team free will at it again.
Alluding to the fact that, like, whoa, something's not right.
Yeah. So we cut to this motel room. Sam and Dean are sitting there, they're doing whatever, and there's a knock at the door. Sam answers the door, and lo and behold, who is it? It's Becky. She's like, oh my god, like, you're real. Hi. You're exactly as wonderful as I expected you to be. And then she squeezes his pec, his boob. She gropes him. What? Sam is always being groped or harassed by women on this show, okay?
Yeah, and he's like, please stop touching me. And she goes, I can't.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And you're like, no, this isn't funny. Like, gross.
Yeah. Also, she does see Dean and is like, because she opens the door and is like, oh my God. And Dean's like, are you okay? And she's like, you guys are, oh. She looks at Dean and she's like, you're not what I expected.
You're not what I expected. She did not expect to see Gay Boy McGee over there. I love that about, that part is funny. I don't like her, though.
She's also like, oh my gosh, you guys are Sam and Dean Winchester. Chuck didn't put the last names in the book, dog. How'd you know that? Maybe he told her
Chuck
on the phone.
probably told her because she had to find them.
True. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, and she's like, hi, and she starts to say, like, I've written so much about you. Anyway, and you're like, girl, be silent. She's like, hi, Chuck sent me with a message, and they're like, what? And she said, the angels have lost Michael's sword, and it is to be found in a castle on a hill made of 42 dogs. And they're like, girl, what are you saying? That doesn't make any sense. She's like, I memorized it. This is exactly what it is. And they're like, okay, so it has to be something like in code or something, but like this woman is not making any sense. We cut to Bobby arriving in the Impala. Clearly he got it from wherever in Maryland. And he brings this giant lore tome with paintings and shit about the Archangel Michael, because we're talking about Michael's sword, and who is Lucifer's older brother, the strongest of the angels, etc., etc. They're talking it over, whatever. And Sam decides to confess to Bobby and be like, listen, it was my mistakes that freed Lucifer. And some wild shit happens where Bobby turns to him and is like, I don't forgive you. And once this hunt is over, I want nothing to do with you. Lose my number. And the saddest thing happens in that, like, Sam doesn't even fight him. He just, like, resigns to it. And he's like, okay, like, he's so not used to a father figure loving him that he does not realize that this isn't normal for Bobby. Those of us watching are like, Bobby would never fucking say that. Bobby would never say that about his boys.
Yeah, especially how in the last episode, his whole thing was like, okay, Dean, I know we're mad at Sam, but like,
yeah,
the main thing we're trying to do is bring him back. We're not trying to push him away.
Yeah. And Bobby is like stone cold. And Sam's like, okay, well, I'll do my research in this like abandoned church nearby. Like, I'll leave you guys to it. And we cut to Dean and Bobby, and they're researching, and Dean's like, hold on. Bobby starts talking about their dad at one point, and he's like, wait, yeah, about my dad. And he starts going through John's old stuff.
It's also important to say, Bobby is like, you know, maybe your dad was right about Sam. You know, maybe we should have taken him out. Do you want to?
Yeah. We cut to then Bobby and Dean are sitting there, and they're researching, and Bobby's like, you know, maybe your dad was right about Sam. Like, maybe we should have taken him out. And Dean kind of has a look, and he's like, excuse me? Like, Dean has a look of like, that's not right. That's not something Bobby would say. And then suddenly he's like, oh, wait, my dad. And he's like, so he starts going through his dad's stuff, and, which are just in his bag. We can't get into that. And he's like, oh, and this little baggie, there was a receipt. He had a storage facility, and he's looking at the receipt, and he's like, oh my God, that message from Chuck was a clue. He's like, oh, this is this storage facility. It's called like Castle Storage Facility or whatever. And the street is like 42 something. Basically
42 Rover Street, I think.
Yeah, 42 Rover Street, the dogs, whatever. And he's like, oh my God, we have it. And then suddenly Bobby attacks Dean. Clearly he has been possessed. And a woman bursts through the door with two guys behind her. And you're like, who is this woman? And he's like, who are you? And she's like, hey, Dean. And he's like, who are you? And he's like, Ruby. She's like, nope, go a little farther back. It's Meg, everybody. She's back.
Oh my god. And this vessel, too, for Meg is so fucking iconic.
She serves. I
She
love
served
Meg.
hard.
Meg is back. We love her ass. The demon, she worked under Azazel. And Meg's like, hey girl, we do want to kill you so that you can't stop Lucifer. And here's the thing. Then she does something crazy. She kisses him. And puts something in his mouth. And he's like, why does this taste like peanut butter? And I'm like, why are you kissing him? Stop.
Number 1, gross. Number 2, gross. Why are we up assaulting these boys in this episode?
God damn! Like, leave them alone.
Right. Eric Kripke, why did you write that?
Yeah. What exactly was she passing into his... I'm
gonna be so real. I have no fucking clue. I think I was so stunned by that. I don't even think she was. I think she just... I don't know.
Then she's like, hey, Bobby's still alive in there while he's possessed. And she says to the demon possessing Bobby, she's like, kill Dean. Using the demon knife. And the demon in Bobby's body has the knife and is about to kill Dean with it. And then instead of stabbing Dean, he stabs himself. And you're like... He loves his boys. It's very emotional. Okay, he stabs himself in the gut. Sam comes back and is like, "Whoa, what happened here?" Like literally, like Troy,
like the gif of Troy from Community where he has the pizza.
Yeah. He's like, "Whoa!" He comes back and they kill the other demons, but Meg escapes by leaving her vessel. And they're like, "Oh shit." We cut back to Nick in his house. He has been hallucinating. He's not well. He's going through some stuff, clear stuff of baby stuff that's in boxes. And you can assume that, his wife and child are gone. And he starts hallucinating again, and he starts hearing a baby crying, and he's like, what the fuck? And it's coming from inside this box, and he pulls out the baby monitor, and the baby monitor, there's something crying, and he's like, that's not possible. And he goes, this part, it's so sad. He goes to
this part fucked me up, like, big style.
He goes to the crib, and obviously the crib is empty, and this just, like, black goo just starts coming out from underneath it, and he just...
It's not black goo, it's like blood.
Oh, because I thought it was...
No, it was like, so basically blood starts streaming out of this crib.
And he's like sobbing.
Like,
yeah,
it's a fucked up scene.
It's so fucked. Like, clearly Lucifer is sending him visions.
And it also, honestly, it kind of, that scene made me, and like the scene ends with him like crumpled next to the crib just sobbing. But it's like kind of scary. Like, it's a freaky scene. Yeah. And it really made me miss when this show embraced that it was like trying to be horror.
Yeah.
And like now it's always been a procedural, but now it's so like, oh, we have all this stuff with angels and demons. Like, I feel like it kind of loses the plot of being like,
it's supposed to be scary. It's about real people being scared by shit.
Yeah.
Back in the day when Supernatural was scary, we cut to hospital emergency room. Sam and Dean walk in with Bobby in between them, bleeding out, and they're like, you know, somebody help this man, like, he was stabbed, whatever. They take the nurses and whatever, take Bobby, whatever, and they're like, where are you taking him? Like, can't, and they're like, you have to stay here and we have to ask you some questions. But then Dean turns to Sam and is like, we can't stay here to answer questions and be with Bobby. We have to go get Michael's knife from or go to our dad's lockup and figure out before the demons get there. And Sam's like, we can't just leave Bobby. And they're like, he's like, we'll be fine. And he's like, you know, clearly Bobby's sacrifice would be for nothing if we didn't fucking hustle.
And it's also clear that Sam is feeling, like, guilt over what happened and over, like, the conversation he had with Bobby.
Yeah.
And is, like, doesn't want to leave him, as any son would feel.
And because he wasn't there, like, he hasn't processed that was a demon, really, either. And they race to the lockup. The lockup is in New York. I don't know where they are now, if they're at this motel.
I don't think that the lockup is in New York. I think that Dean was like, oh, our dad's other lockup was in New York. Okay. I don't know if it says where this one is.
Yeah.
John Winchester just has, like, a crazy amount of storage units. I wish he had written this down somewhere. Yeah. Apparently his journal just was not intentionally vague.
Yeah. They show up, and I don't know how they have a key or whatever, but they show up and they find a bunch of dead demons. And they're like, what? And there's nothing there. And lo and behold, who shows up? It's Zachariah with a bunch of angels who clearly killed all the demons. And Zachariah's like, hey, so I kind of gave Chuck some false information, but it wasn't, like, actually false. Like, Michael's sword is here. And Dean's like, we don't have anything here. And he's like, well, you idiot. That's because you are Michael's sword. It's you. Surprise, surprise. And Dean's like, huh? And he's like, well, yeah, like, you're special, and Michael needs a vessel, and we don't have our commander here, and you're supposed to be his vessel. You're his sword. And because he needs to fight Lucifer. And Dean says, no, I don't want to spend my life. I don't think it would be really fun to spend my life as an angel condom.
And I'm like, he could, I feel like we both had the same thought there. And I don't feel like I can say, I think,
That's so interesting.
Anyway, there is Destiel everywhere for those with eyes to see it,
why those words, Dean?
something Freudian slip. Rest in peace, Dean Winchester. You would have hated Freud.
Zachariah is like, listen, I'm tired of your jokes. We gotta get this show on the road. And Dean's like, well, you can't do that without my permission. And he's like, oh, trust and believe, I will get you to agree. And he's like, okay, fine. And he just breaks one of Sam's legs. And he's like, here you go. And he's like, heaven needs a leader. And he's like, and Dean's like, no. And then he's like, okay, great. We'll heal Bobby. Because Bobby's never going to walk again. And Dean's like, no. He's tempted, but he's like, no.
No, he was real for that, because Bobby would not have wanted him to sacrifice that for him. Like,
yeah. And then Zachariah's like, okay, fine. So then I guess I'll heal you from stage 4 stomach cancer. And Dean, like, doubles over and is like, oh, shit. And he's coughing up blood. And he's like, and Dean's like, still no. And then he's like, okay, fine. I'm not playing around. And what happens to Sam if I just take away his lungs? And then Sam's just, like, gasping like a fish. And you're like, okay, he would be immediately dead. But, like, okay. And you have to give up, like, he's like, just kill us. And he's like, girl, I'm not going to kill you. We're just getting started. I'm going to torture you. And just then... Yippee!
Everyone clapped.
I need a hero.
I'm gonna say this is one of his sexiest scenes,
oh.
And I'm like, I don't even find him sexy in any way, shape, or form. But after watching this scene, I was like, okay, I get it.
If I had been Dean, holy God, that would have turned me gay just then. And he had already saved him once.
If he wasn't fighting stomach cancer, he would have the biggest heart on. I know it.
Castiel appears, and he starts smiting the other angels with an angel blade. And Zachary is like, girl, how are you alive? And he's like, it's the same person who put those brothers on the plane and also brought me back. And they're like, who is that?
Yeah, because and Cass is also like, oh, really? Like, you're gonna fuck with me? Well, I'm back, bitch.
I'm back.
And he also, like, he had this, like, very, like, well choreographed fight scene against these other angels.
Yeah, like, he's serving.
Like, you can't tell him jack or shit.
Like, and Zachariah is, like, panicked. He's like, what the fuck? And Castiel is like, you need to fix them, and then you need to leave. And Zachariah is scared shitless, and he does it and then leaves. And because of the implication of who may have brought Cass back. And they're like, oh my god, how are you alive? Dean is looking at him like he holds the world in his hands, first of all.
Also, I have to say, first thing Cass does is walk up and deliver all of his lines within maybe like a foot of Dean,
yeah.
like, is up in his business. And I'm like, it's not even exaggerating. Like, he literally walks up and is like right up in front of him, right up in his snatch.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And also, this isn't the only scene with Cass where he does this. There will be other scenes, and I was going to mention this, like, there are all the other scenes with him in the rest of this episode where there are other people in the room. He answers every question, no matter who says it, looking at Dean the whole time. Including a very specific line. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, it's such a choice. It's such a choice. And they're like, hey, who brought you back? And he's like, who can say? And he goes up to the both of them and he touches them. And they're like, ow, like what happened? And he's like, I just carved Enochian sigils onto you so that no angel in all of creation, including Lucifer, who's an angel, can find you. And they're like, where? And he's like, on your ribs. And they're like, huh. And then Sam's like, girl, how are you alive? And he's like, who can say? Bye. And then he just leaves. And you're like, what? Dean is standing there like, hello? And that's not even the craziest part. Okay. That's not even the craziest scene of them in this episode.
I did notice something in this scene, though. Was where Cass is like, hee hee hee. Like, Sam's like, how'd you survive? Like, how are you alive? And they also ask, like, were you actually dead? And he's like, yes, I was actually totally dead. And they're like, well, how are you back? And he, like, looks into the camera and then disappears. I'm like, is he talking to me? Like, I didn't do anything, Cass. Don't look at me. I'm just sitting here on my ass.
Is this about how Supernatural is a meta narrative? Who can say? Who can say? We cut back to Nick. His wife, Sarah, has appeared to him. It is Lucifer, clearly in her body. And she's like, hey, I'm Lucifer. And he literally is like, remind me next time not to drink before I go to bed. And Lucifer's like, no, girl, this is real. And he's like, okay, sure, Jan. And he's like, this has got to be a dream. And she's like, you're special, and you're going to be a vessel, and I need your consent to possess you, whatever. And he's like, and why would I do that? And Lucifer's like, well, I was misunderstood. I was punished for loving God too much. And, you know, the same God who let someone brutally murder your family. And God is uncaring, right? Like, he's wronged both of us in a way. And I'm not going to say it's not going to be, it's going to be unpleasant, but, you know, I'm going to help you. And he's like, can you get my family back? And he's like, no, but I can help you get the next best thing, which is justice and revenge for your family. And Nick says yes. And they cut to the house, and you just see like a light coming out of all the windows. We cut back, and we are at the hospital. Bobby is sitting up in bed, and a doctor tells him that he isn't going to walk again. And Bobby like yells him out of the room. And he's like, well, we got to keep fighting. but girl, it's the apocalypse. Like, what are we gonna do? And I can't walk. And Dean says one of his kind of most iconic lines at this moment. And he's like, what are you gonna fight Lucifer with? And he goes, well, I got a GED and a can-do attitude.
No, he says, I've got a GED and I give him hell attitude.
And I give him hell attitude. And you're like, King! He's like, I'll figure it out. He's like, we're gonna take on angels and demons, and he gives a whole speech. And then they leave the room. And as they're leaving the room, Bobby's like, hey, the demon said that stuff. I was awake. I know what he said. And he's like, that he wanted nothing to do with you. And he's like, no matter what you've done, I will never, I would never say that. I would never do that. He basically says, like, he'd always love him. He would never do that. And you're like, okay, I'm fine. I love you, Bobby. They're walking to the car, which I'm like, why are you walking to the car? Why are you leaving Bobby there?
They gotta lay down. It's been a long day.
I'm like, why are you walking to the car? That man needs a wheelchair. He needs Medicaid.
You can't, like, leave the hospital.
I'm just saying, like, you can't just leave him there, but okay. And
why can't they leave it? Why can't they leave him in the hospital overnight? Like, what are you talking about?
I don't know. Okay. Anyways, they're like, Dean kind of turns to Sam and he's like, listen, that speech was for Bobby's benefit. We're fucked, girl. Sam's like, listen, I want to talk about it. I'm really sorry, whatever. And Dean's like, yeah, I'm actually really hurt by it. You want to talk about it? I'm really hurt by it. I'm let down. And even though you're sorry, I don't think I can ever trust you again. And they just kind of turn away from each other and the episode ends. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. He's also like, I don't think we'll ever be what we were again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we're ever going to have that again. And it's like, oh, coming from Dean, that's brutal.
I was like, and I'm going to say this right here. I do think that Dean is kind of being an ass in these episodes. Sam was tricked. He didn't know, and he was doing his best. Something that Dean has done many times. Like, he's like, I didn't want to deceive you. I didn't want, like, he wouldn't have lied to his brother if he didn't know that his brother wasn't going to react this way. He was doing his fucking best. He was trying to stop things. And he talks about it in the next episode a little bit about how he's like, I want to be powerful enough to save people. Clearly he has this complex because his brother saved him and people always had to save him or whatever. But I'm like, Sam is going through a hard time right now and you're being an ass. First of all, don't treat people going through addiction this way. Second of all, it wasn't even like, at some point Sam kind of does a thing of like, I have to accept he kind of does like an AA thing where he's like, I have to accept my mistakes or whatever. But I'm like, let's be clear, this is not like drugs. He was tricked.
It's kind of a weird situation because, like, I do totally agree. I think it's like, this is when I think you can tell that the show is starting to go down a convoluted path where it's like, I feel like a lot of their issues, like the past, like seasons 1 through 4, I think really are working out through a lot of their like familial issues and the way they feel and the way they relate to their dad and all of that. And then we get here and I think, they have lied to each other and gotten over it about like pretty serious things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this is what starts, this show starts now, this cycle of there's just so much show that these characters have been through so much and like healed and grown from so much.
Yeah.
That they start kind of having to revert and do certain plots and emotional beats over again because they're like, oh shit, we don't have conflict that's occurring naturally.
Yeah.
So like I get why
it starts a cycle that will go on for the next 10 seasons, which is I guess we're just gonna have them forget any development they had. Fuck it.
Like I totally get why Dean is frustrated, and I think it's fair for him to be frustrated because it is like it's more that Sam trusted Ruby as opposed to...
And he didn't tell him, and he lied.
Yeah, that's, I think, the main thing, is that he's like, I tried to tell you this was a bad idea, and you not only didn't listen, you lied about it. But also, like, so I get why Dean is like this, and I do think he's being unfair, but I also get where Sam is coming from, etc. But the big problem is that I'm like, did we not have this whole thing with Sam when he found out he had demon blood and found out he had
Yeah.
powers. Like, we'd already kind of gone through this whole, like,
Yeah, and specifically Dean as a character had grown about this kind of stuff too. And granted, people can go back, whatever. I think looking at it in hindsight is hard because it's like, if this was just a one-off thing, then maybe it would be fine. But this does continue to happen. And it gets really frustrating.
Because I think when you're watching it the first time, like, season 5 is pretty good, but when you're watching it in context, when you've already seen stuff and you kind of know where the show is going, it gets really frustrating.
You're like,
where it's like, okay, I'm not having fun because I know they're going to be rehashing this exact same drama like
in season
5
15.
more times. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know what? Fine. Like I said, this time is a little more justifiable because I'm like, yeah, this is also like, you know, we are removing the context of being like, yeah, Sam had fucked up in the past, but this time he literally released Lucifer. So I'm like, I get why Dean would be frustrated, but like,
but like the whole thing is like, it literally wasn't his fault. Like, I'm like, Dean, you couldn't figure out that your special thing was being the vessel for Michael. Like, girl.
This episode is okay. I think it's an entertaining episode.
Yeah.
But the problem with it is just the implications and like where it sets the season to go.
And I feel like it's a great example for Supernatural moving forward, which is, some questionable things happen. Oh my God, Cass!
Yeah, literally.
Like, he saves the episode and then leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The next episode...
Oh
my God.
The next episode is one of those ones that I feel like there's mixed opinion on. Because quite frankly, I'm like, I feel like there are parts of it that I was like, oh, that was fun. But overall, I'm like, okay.
All right.
Like, I miss, this is again, when the show starts to get super, super big and like world-ending stuff is when I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this next episode is Season 5, Episode 2, Good God, y'all. And we were like, why is it called that? That's such a random name. And then it was like, no, wait, it's based on a song lyric. Because of course it is. And it'll make sense once we get into the episode.
I feel like Supernatural writers cannot resist either a movie reference or a song reference in the same way that 911 cannot stop referencing Die Hard. Like, it's every episode. Lord. It's like, enough.
Sam and Dean are visiting Bobby in the hospital. Bobby is still like not able to walk. He's in a wheelchair. Isn't really like talking or anything. Like, he's been kind of quiet for days. And they're kind of like going back and forth about like, oh, what do we do? Blah, 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 whatever. And Sam's phone rings and he answers it. And he's like, Castiel? Yeah, we're at this hospital. Okay. Yeah. Cass? Hello? And he hangs up and Dean's like, what the fuck? Why did he just call you? And he's like, I don't know. And then Cass shows up at the hospital, walks in the room and is like, hey girls, so I did put those symbols on you, so I also cannot track you. So I do have to call you on the phone now if I want to find you.
Which is so hilarious. And it's so funny that they didn't think of that too. So they're just like, wait, you know how to use a phone? Like,
I think, which is crazy because Cass has used a phone in the past. Like, there was an episode where he called Sam to be like, hey girl, I need you to come and like be a spirit or whatever. Also, I just think the idea of Cass going to open, like, I'm sure he probably just has like a burner phone, whatever, but the idea of him trying to go open like a cellular plan and they're like, what's your social security number? And he's like, and they're like, do you have credit history? And he's like, that's crazy.
Jimmy Novak in the back of his mind is like, oh, here's my social security number.
But Cass is like, anyway, okay, so he's like, all right, guys, we are gonna make this work. We are gonna figure it out. We're gonna have a plan. So, you know, everything's really like fucked up right now. There's one person who can stop Lucifer, and it's the person who brought me back.
He's like, one person other than Michael, because Dean is like, girl, I'm not going to be Michael. And he's like, no. There's someone else.
Yeah, and he's like, the person who put you guys on that plane, the person who brought me back, I'm gonna find God. And Dean's like, no offense, that shit is stupid, because clearly, like, stuff has been happening, and God doesn't give, like, a rat's ass. And he's like, okay, you know what? You know what, guys? I rebelled. I've killed 2 angels, 2 of my brothers. And I did all of this. I did all of this for you. And he points at Dean and he goes, and you failed. So you keep your opinions to yourself.
And he's saying this right next to Dean in his face. It's clearly I rebelled and I did all of it for you. Girl, what the fuck?
No, he's like, and you know what? Fuck you guys, because you failed, but I'm trying to fix it. So keep your fucking opinion to yourself. I am going to find God. And I need something from you. And then Bobby is like, hey, like, I'm also in the room. While you're here, like, do you want to, like, heal my legs? Can you get to healing, buddy? And Cass is like, I'm so sorry, Bobby. I literally cannot because I've been cut off from heaven for rebelling. And Bobby's like, you're fucking joking. You rebel at the one time I really need you to have some healing magic. And he's like, dude, I'm fucking sorry. I don't have anything else for you. Peace and love. I wish I did.
No, and also in this scene, Bobby's like pissed. He's angry, whatever. And Sam's like, well, at least he's talking.
Yeah, literally. He's like, okay, well, you know, take what you can get. But he's like, okay, so in order to find God, I had to get something from you guys. I need an amulet. And Bobby is like, well, I don't have an amulet. Do you guys have amulets? And they both, like, look at each other, and, like, all 3 of them are like, oh, we don't have anything. And then Cass, like, sort of looks at Dean, likely thing for him to do. And Dean looks down and realizes he has this amulet, the one that Sam got him. If you'll recall, he got it for him for Christmas when they were kids, and he's worn it ever since then. I think there was a point where it got lost, but then he had it again in Lazarus Rising.
Yeah, and that was a surprising thing where he was like, yeah, when I, like, crawled my way out of the earth after being saved from hell, I had the thing again. And you're like, this is a Mouseketeil we'll use for later.
Yeah, so as many in the fandom call it the Samulet because Sam gave it to him, so that's what I'll call it so that we can remember. But Cass is like, yes, this amulet will burn hot in God's presence. And Sam is like, so it's like a godly EMF detector. And he's like, you know, in a way, yeah. Can I have it? And Dean's like, no. And Cass is like, please. And he's like, okay, fine, but, like, don't lose it. Like, I feel naked without it. And I was like, oh, so now we're doing the metaphor of he's undressing him. Okay.
Yeah. And also, what do you mean this random fuck-ass amulet he's had just glows in the presence of God? What the fuck?
I was like, no. See, this is the part where I'm like, season 5 starts getting convoluted. It starts here. But I'm also like, okay, he's trusting Cass with this thing.
Yeah, no, it's literally like, oh, the plot is going sideways. Oh, Destiel!
No, literally, it's so sick. Because then the rest of the episode, I'm like, I'm checking out, whatever. So anyway, so Cass is like, okay, like, I will not lose it, I promise. I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna go look for God. And as he's leaving, Bobby's like, when you find God, can you tell him to send some legs?
Bobby, you are an icon, and you are the moment.
Ugh. So we cut, and Bobby, Sam, and Dean are in the hospital. I thought it was the same day. It may be another day. Regardless, they're here. And Bobby gets a phone call on his little cellular device, and he answers, and he's like, hey. Well, he's not like that, but that's the vibe. He's like, hey, girl. And it's Rufus. And if you'll recall, Rufus is one of Bobby's old hunter friends, and they low-key have beef, but are also kind of friends. Like, they're like toxic yaoi, you know? Anyway, so Rufus is like, it's cutting off, like, the reception sucks, but Bobby can glean from what he's saying, like, demons, you need, like, river past Colorado, which is not a real place, but he's being like, basically saying, like, you need to send help because there's demons, and that's all Bobby can really get. And then we cut to Rufus, and he is, like, in this town, like, it's giving small town, like, main road of a small town vibes. And he has like a machine gun, and he's like hiding behind cars, and there's a guy who's like injured on his leg, and he's like pulling him up. Like it's almost like a war zone, but you don't see any of the other people fighting, but clearly some shit is happening.
A key part of that is also that when Rufus called him on the phone, he called him on this phone that like it's not like a regular flip phone or whatever. It's clearly a satellite phone, and even the satellite phone is not doing well. It's like an old satellite phone. Like it's not a normal phone, and you're like, why is he using a satellite phone? And like he's like tying up a tourniquet on this guy's leg who got shot, and he's like, what? We're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, clearly there's some shit going on. So we cut to Sam and Dean in the Impala, and they pull up, and it says that they're now in River Pass, Colorado, and they come to this bridge that leads into town, and the bridge is fucking collapsed. So they're like, okay, awesome. Well, this is like the only way like in and out of town, which is crazy that there's only one way out of your town. You need to build a better town. Anyway, so they're like, okay, we're going to have to like cross over, like just hike down and hike back up and like go in. And as they're walking into town, Spirit in the Sky, the song starts playing. Which is a song I love, but I was not expecting to hear it, and it did make me laugh.
Yeah, you're like, whoa.
As they're walking, there's like cars flipped over, like there's a banner up for like a harvest festival or some bullshit like that for the town, but like there's no one there. Like clearly people have like run out in a hurry. Like it looks like post-apocalyptic almost. But they're like walking around, like there was clearly some disaster. They walk past this like bright red Mustang, like this car, and that looks like it's like the only car that's not like totally fucked up, but it's still like weird. And then they're walking down the street, and Sam walks up to another car, and the song is playing on the radio, so it becomes diegetic. It's an interesting little,
it was cute
directorial choice. He turns the sound off, and he's like, Jay chillin', and they're looking around and they're like, what the fuck like happened here? Like, this is so crazy. And then suddenly they like hear something, and they turn around and they hear like a gun cock, and they both turn around and holy water gets thrown in their faces. And then they realize who's here. Ellen Harvale. Ellen Harvale is here, and if you'll remember, Ellen was the owner of the Roadhouse, which was like a hunter road stop bar. It was where Ash was from, and Ellen has like her daughter Jo, who also wanted to be a hunter,
and her husband died because he was on a hunt with John Winchester, but she still considers them to be like her boys. And when we last left Jo started hunting, and her mom didn't like it. R.I.P. Ash. May he rest in peace.
R.I.P. Yeah. So, but she sees the boys and is like, oh my god, like, they're not demons. She, like, pulls them into, like, this room that they're in that has, like, a demon trap around, like, a devil's trap at the door. So basically she's like, okay, come with me. Like, this is our home base. But she goes in, she hugs Dean really tight, and then smacks him in the face. And she's like, why the fuck did I have to find out that you were alive from Rufus? You couldn't pick up a phone? You couldn't give me a call? I had better be on your fucking speed dial going forward, because I was worried as shit about you guys. And I'm like, I love that she also didn't hug Sam. She said, I know where my allegiances lie. She's a girl.
I was like, damn, this shit. Well, I mean, because the implication is that everybody thought Dean was dead. So she's specifically mad at Dean because...
Oh, right. Because of, like...
Because Dean was literally dead, and all the hunters
back
know.
After Lazarus Rising.
Yeah.
God damn, I didn't realize that she did not know this whole, like,
That's what she's saying.
Fuck. Oh my god.
She found out from Rufus... She probably met up with Rufus in this town, whatever, and had to find out that Dean was alive, and that's why he was calling Bobby. And
bitch, okay. Now I'm putting the pieces together. Actually, she is so right.
Yeah, she's like,
okay,
hey, bitch.
Her reaction's making a lot more sense to me now.
Yeah,
guys, am I a bad man? Anyway, so she so she's like, okay, so T is that Rufus called me, and you can assume he called her and Bobby like around the same time, but she just got there first. And she's like, yeah, Rufus called me, and Joe and I showed up here to like look around, figure out what the fuck was going on. And like we were together for a little bit. We found out that like basically the entire town is possessed by demons, and it's like war out there. But Rufus, Joe, and I were doing something, and we got separated. So I don't know where they are, but I can't leave because I have like a bunch of like the survivors. So it's just me and these people. And she opens up like a door, and I don't know like what kind of place they're staying in. It's
They're
like
in
an
a church.
auditorium.
No,
they're in a church. Is it a
like a church basement?
That's what it is.
Like it's like a place where they would have like, you know, Sunday dinners and whatever. They're in a church basement. That's why there's a priest.
That makes sense. Yeah. So there is a priest. There's a woman who's pregnant. There's like a guy who clearly has like ex-military vibes, and there's just a couple other like random townsfolk. And Ellen walks in, and there's maybe like 10, like 12 or so people. And Ellen walks in, and she's like, okay, guys, these are my friends Sam and Dean. They're here to help. And this white guy who looks like, again, he is like ex-military, so just keep that in mind. So I'm going to refer to him as such. But the ex-military guy is like, oh, so they know about like the whole like demon situation? And they're like, yeah, so you're all believers now. And one of the guys there is like, yeah, well, when your wife comes at you with a brick, you kind of start believing in the supernatural pretty fast.
When your wife's eyes turn black and then it comes out with you with a brick, yeah. And she also says, she's like, hi, like they're hunters. Like she specifically says they're hunters. Yeah.
So they like, another thing I noticed is that it's so funny how there are never any kids in these sort of scenarios. And is it probably because like they didn't want to have to worry about filming around child actors? Yeah. But I'm like, you have this whole town, and you mean to tell me like the only survivors are all of these adults and no children? This is fucked.
Yeah, I'm like, are all the kids dead? Like, I don't know.
Or are they all possessed? Like, what the fuck's going on? Because I didn't see a single child in this whole episode. Anyway. So they're like, okay, we can't just like sit around and wait. We got to get these people out of town. I think Dean says that. And he's like, we got to get these people out. And Ellen's like,
he's like, why are you guys just sitting here? Like, have you tried leaving?
Right. But that's kind of the same thing, is that he's like, we got to get these people out of here. Like, we can't just wait. Like, I know Joe and Rufus are out there, but like they are competent. We got to get these people out. And Ellen's like, well, we tried. There used to be 20 of us. So it's like, oh, okay, right. So, cool. So Sam and Dean are going back and forth, and Dean's like, okay, so I saw a sporting goods store down the street. If we go get some guns from there, we love America.
This is a point where you're like, I love America.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, we have to let's go pick up some guns, because if we can arm these people and get them rock salt, like we can get salt rounds, like we can stop by, there's a drugstore or like a little grocery store, like a corner store, we can get some salt from there. Then we can arm these people and we'll have a fighting chance of getting them out. I'm gonna go do this. And Sam's like, no, like we'll both go. And he's like, and they like go into like the stairwell, and Sam is like, why don't you want me to go? Like, is it because you don't think that I can handle myself? And Dean's like, no, I didn't say that. So Sam's like, okay, great. So we're both going. So.
And Dean's like, no, like, they need you to, like, help train them here, whatever. And he's like, well, why can't you do that? Why can't Joe do that?
Or Ellen. Yeah.
Why can't Ellen do that?
He's like, well, that's why Ellen's here, because she's going to teach them how to use the guns, and we're going to go get the stuff. And Dean's like, right, okay, cool. So clearly he's not happy with him and Sam both going. Because Sam is like, oh, you don't want me around demons, blah, 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 whatever. So they start walking down the street, and Sam is like, okay, like the sporting goods store is right there. How about you go and I'll run and grab the salt. And Dean's like, oh, we can both go get the salt. And he's like, Dean, it's literally right here. Like, it'll take 2 seconds. I'm gonna do it, okay? So Sam goes to the store.
Sam bitchily is like, at least can we just, I know you don't want to talk to me, like, at least let's act like professionals. And then, like, cocks the gun and starts walking, and Dean's like, okay, fine. Like, you're like, ooh, the girls are fighting.
Yeah, the girls are fighting. So Sam goes into this convenience store, and he starts going through it, and he finds some salt, and he goes to grab it, and then he hears the door open. And he turns around, and there's these 2 men who he later says were teenagers. I didn't quite get that, but apparently they were just, according to Sam, they were just kids. But there's these 2 people, and Sam is trying to figure out, like, what their vibe is, and he's hiding, and he tries to grab the salt really quietly, but he fucks up and makes a noise, and one of them turns around and runs at him and is clearly a demon. So they start beating the shit out of each other. This bigger demon has Sam, like, pinned up and is about to, like, choke him out, basically. And Sam starts, and in a shocking turn of events, Sam actually starts reading the exorcism.
Haven't done that in a while.
No, literally, he starts reciting the exorcism. And then he says, fuck it, and pulls out the knife, the demon knife, and stabs this demon and kills him. And I noticed in this moment, I was like, it's really weird because normally when you stab a demon, it has that, like, lighting effect to where they basically look like they're being lit from the inside. And that didn't happen. And my first thought was, I was like, okay, that could just be a production mistake. Maybe they're low on budget. But then I was like, I'm just going to file this away for later. The other demon runs up and starts also attacking Sam, and he stabs that one too. And he stands there alone in the convenience store with all this demon blood. And he looks down at the blood that's on his blade, and he looks down at the corpses of these 2 people that he's had to kill to stop the demons. And you can tell he's, like, thinking about the demon blood. And then Dean walks in and is like, oh shit, like, you good? What happened? But Dean then, like, sees Sam having an issue and is like, fuck, okay. Filing that away for later. So the boys go back to the church, and one of the priest is like, you can hear him reading from the Bible, like, trying to comfort the people who are there. And they start distributing the weapons, and the soldier who's there starts talking to Dean, and Dean's like, oh, you know how to handle a gun? Guy takes it apart really fast, and he's like, oh, like, clearly you served, like, where'd you serve? And they start talking about it, about military service, and he's like, oh, well, you know, it takes one to know one. Where'd you serve? And Dean's like, oh, hell. And he's like, oh, yeah, I get that, but, like, where actually? And he's like, no, like in hell, like, for real.
Which I think is so funny. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna relate to this military man who, this guy's like, yeah, I was in Fallujah, whatever. And he's like, I was in hell.
Yeah. So then Sam, Dean, and Ellen start talking, and they're like, okay, Joe and Rufus are out there, so we need to go find them and, like, help them and make sure that we get, like, everyone together, figure out what we can do about this town. And Sam was like, okay, yeah, like, me and Ellen can go. Let's do it. And Dean's like, oh no, how about I'll go by myself, or I'll go with Ellen and you can stay here and protect these people. And Sam is like, they go step aside, just the 2 of them again. Dean is like, hey, like, I saw you with the knife. Like, I saw that. That was weird. And Sam's like, listen, I just, like, miss being able to save people. Like, I miss being able to help. I miss having that.
Well, and Dean's like, and he specifically says, he's like, I had to kill those people, and I miss that with my powers, I didn't have to kill them. I could just exercise them really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dean's like, oh, so you're, like, thinking about it. He's like, well, I didn't say that, which is funny because it kind of, like, mirrors when Dean said that earlier. But he's like, well, no, I didn't. And I'm not, like, falling off. Like, obviously I'm not gonna do it, like, drink demon blood or anything. Like, of course I'm not. Do you honestly think? And he, like, pushes Dean, like, enough that it makes a commotion, and everyone looks over at them. But he's like, do you honestly think that I'm like falling off after everything we've been through? And then he pauses, looks around, realizes people are watching. And he's like, yeah, Ellen and I are going to go like look for Joe and Rufus.
It's so dark. It's so dark.
Yeah. So then we cut. It's Ellen and Sam walking down the street. They're both armed. They're kind of looking around. And Ellen's like, so, what's been going on between you and your brother, huh? You can tell that the vibes are off. Like, did a girl get between you? And I'm like, well, in some sense, yes.
Yes, in a
but
way.
not in the way that you think. But Sam is like, oh no, it's just how the job is sometimes, you know the vibes. He says it like a liar. As they're like having this sort of back and forth, they see a chimney and they see a bunch of smoke coming out of a chimney. And Sam is like, ooh, that's weird. And Ellen's like, ooh, let's go investigate. So they go up to this house and they are looking in through one of the windows and they see a guy standing watch and he's got black eyes. So he's a demon. So there's demons in this house. And Sam's like, well, demons like don't get cold. So I wonder what they're burning.
And also this connects to when the two demons came into the convenience store because they were getting water. And you're like, what do the demons need water for?
Mm-hmm. So this is all happening. They're like, some funky's going on. And then they get attacked. And they start like tussling. And we realize that it's Rufus and Joe. And they're fighting. And they're all like, why the fuck are we fighting? And Joe pushes Ellen up against like a wall and is like, let go of my mother, you black-eyed bitch. And they start fighting. And they're tussling, whatever. And Ellen manages to get away, but Sam gets knocked out.
And Joe has black eyes. She does when we first see her, and then through the rest of the fight, I think she doesn't. She does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she does.
Wig. Momentarily, Joe has black eyes, so it's weird that she said that. Also, welcome back, Joe, played by everyone's favorite former IDF member.
Oh God,
love. Yeah, whose Twitter likes were pretty vile. Before they got rid of likes.
Wow.
So, Alona Tal, fuck you. Anyway. So yeah, Ellen manages to get away, and Sam is like, go, get out of here. But Sam gets, like, knocked the fuck out. Sam, like, wakes up, and he's tied to a chair. And Joe and Rufus are, like, looking at him. And Joe, like, splashes holy water on his face. And he's like, oh my God, like, okay, I'm not a demon. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm good. And Joe is like, why is it not doing anything? And Rufus is like, don't worry about it. Hang on. And he starts, like, reading off an exorcism. And he's like, you're fucked. Like, we're sending you back to hell. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm not a demon. And Rufus starts, like, pouring salt down his throat, which is crazy. But they're, like, exorcising him. And Sam's like, I'm not a fucking demon. What? And Joe's like, okay, this is not working. Something's wrong. So they stop and they, like, look at each other and look back at Sam. And Sam's eyes are black. In their point of view. So something weird, something funky is going on. We then cut to Ellen coming back to her little squad. And they're like, oh my God. Dean's like, where's Sam? And she's like, they got him. They got him. And Dean's like, okay, we are fucked. So they start sort of talking and they're like, okay, so what do we do? And Ellen's like, we saw Joe and Rufus. And there was something weird about it. Like, weird about them. And Dean's like, what was weird? And she's like, Joe called me a bitch. And he's like, well, I mean, like, I guess, that sucks. And she's like, well, no. She called me a black-eyed bitch. Like, she thought I was a demon. Something is not right. So they start putting the pieces together and they're like, okay, That's weird. Something's fucking weird. And Dean's like, okay, so clearly something more complicated is happening here than just demons run amok. So he's like, hey, did anyone, like, to the townsfolk, he's like, did anyone realize anything weird going on before all of the madness started? And the priest is like, yeah, well, the river did run red for a little bit the day before this all started. Which is like, yeah, you'd think you'd mention that. Yeah. And the soldier is like, and I saw, no, it's stupid. And Dean's like, no, we need stupid. We need random. Like, this is good. And he's like, well, I saw a shooting star. And they're like, right. Okay. So Dean and Ellen start, like, poring over the Bible. And Dean is talking to the father. And is like, okay, does that remind you of anything in the Bible? And they start talking about, like, the horsemen of the apocalypse. And they're like, oh my God. Like, red is a symbol of war, and a shooting star is also, like, a symbol of war, like the horsemen coming. And Dean is like, oh my fucking God, that red Mustang that was at the front of town, that's a horse. It's a horse car. There's a fucking war. The horseman war is here.
No, and the other crazy part is, and they're like in Revelations, like the apocalypse, and he just, like, turns to father and he's like, yeah, I got used to it. Anyway.
Yeah, because they're like, wait, for real? And he's like, yes, the apocalypse is happening. Can we get back to the point? And they're like, wait, what? And he's like, just please shut the hell up. Anyway, so we cut back, and Sam is sitting in this same room, and he realized, like, there's a devil's trap underneath where he's sitting, but he's just chilling there. This guy walks in. And he, Sam recognizes, is one of the townsfolk who was both hanging with Joe and Rufus, but also was hanging with the other squad, like with Ellen in the church. And Sam's like, wait a minute, I've seen this guy. And he walks in and he's like, hey girl. So this is fucked up, huh? And Sam's like, yeah, like, what, who the fuck are you? Like, are you a demon? Are you, like, something's not right. And he's like, who do you think I am? I was in Germany, then in the Middle East, then in Darfur, waiting to hook up with my 3 siblings. And I take a second to pause to say, fuck you, writers of this show, for talking about these very modern, historically recent instances of genocide and war for a funny little throwaway line in your show.
I was like, oh,
the fuck is wrong with you?
God.
But this guy comes in, and he's like, yeah, so that's so, but, you know, I've been waiting to meet up with my other siblings. There's 3 of them. And Sam is like, oh my God, you're a war, like the horsemen. And he's like, yeah, girl. Like, I like totally am. And Sam's like, are there, like, actually any demons in this town? Like, be real. And he's like, no, there aren't. Yeah. And Sam's like, oh my God, like, you're making these people kill each other. This is fucked up. And he's like, I'm not making them do anything. Like, yeah, I gave them a little push, but, and he says, quote, people don't need a reason to kill each other. Have you seen the Irish?
I genuinely had to pause it. I was like, what year is it?
I'm sorry. Sarah Gamble, you're experiencing some, like, anti-Irish sentiment that hasn't been around for, like since, like, the turn of this fucking century. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
What is wrong with you? I'm like, I'm so sorry to the Irish. What the fuck?
No, like, it's so weird.
Have you seen the Irish? Oh, you know, the people who had to fight against their own fucking colonization?
Yeah.
And then got demonized for it? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Anyways, watch Dairy Girls.
It's so fucking stupid. This whole scene is so dumb.
It's so out of pocket.
This is one of those things where I'm like, I feel like this was a cool idea. And I think the overarching idea was cool. But so many of the things were just like, what the fuck are we doing?
What?
But he's like, you know, people don't need a reason to kill each other. Like, people, it is their natural state. People want to be at war. People want to hurt each other. And, you know, Sam, like, I can see into your, like, don't pretend you're better. I can see into your mind. Like, you have a lust for blood and a lust for power. You want to be strong. You want to be stronger than other people. Well, you feel bad now. Imagine how you're going to feel when you're knee deep in bodies. Because I'm just getting started. And Sam is like, no, like, this is crazy. And he goes, no, you know what? Hang on, watch this. And he's wearing a really comically large gold ring. And he stands up and he twists the ring. And blood starts, like, pooling at his hairline and starts running down his head. And he's like, hey, watch this. And he falls on the ground, like, leaps onto the ground. And he's like, oh my gosh, ow, like, he hurt me. He attacked me. And Joe and Rufus run in and start, like, trying to, like, hold Sam down, even though he's, like, tied to a chair. But he's like, he hurt me. He told me that they're coming for us, that they're all gonna kill us, and we need to go out and kill them before they get us. We have to prepare. And Sam's like, oh, fuck me. Okay, he's lying. And they're all like, girl, shut the hell up. You're a demon. And he's like, I'm not. Okay, sure. Then we cut back to the church. And, like, they're all talking. And who runs in? This same fucking guy. War runs in. And he's bloody. And he's like, oh my god, guys. I just like, ran into the demons. And they're gonna, like, come and get us. They know where we are. And they're gonna kill us if we don't go out and kill them first. And Dean and Ellen, who've also just come to the conclusion that there are no demons, are like, whoa, like, we don't think there are any demons. Like, what did they say to you? And he's like, what does it matter, like, what they said to me? They said they're gonna come kill us. And Dean's like, there aren't demons. Like, I don't know what happened, but, like, we can figure this out. Calm down. Where did you go anyway? And he's like, well, we were all just sitting here, so I wanted to go look around. And then he's like, well, why are you guys, like, War is like, you guys, like, they're saying there's no demons, but I think they might be demons. And he twists his ring again, and all of the townsfolk look, and Ellen and Dean have black eyes in their vision.
It's so dark. It's so...
And also, remember, they've gone all these lengths to arm these people. So they start, like, trying to attack them. So Ellen and Dean, like, run out. And they're like, oh, fuck, we gotta find, like, Rufus and Joe and Sam and create a plan. So they, like, run out. We cut back down into the, like, after Ellen and Dean have left, we're back in the church basement. And this, like, this military guy is, like, loading actual bullets into his gun. And he's talking to War, who he still thinks is just a guy. And he's like, yeah, you know, I'm willing to bet they've been demons this whole time. And all that shit they said about salt is fucking stupid. And I bet it doesn't even work. And they're just trying to throw us off. So they're, like, gonna go and, like, kill these people. We then cut to Rufus and Joe are chilling in this house that they've made camp in. And we realize now those people were getting water because they were just human teenagers. And there's a fire going because they're just cold because there's no demons. But Rufus is, like, setting up a fucking pipe bomb on a window. And Joe's like, that seems like a bit extreme. I don't think pipe bombs stop demons. And Rufus is like, well, they might not stop them, but they are a lot slower when their legs have been blown off. And she's like, Rufus, like, one of them's in my mother. And he's like, listen, I know Ellen. I'm going to be careful. And Ellen's going to be fine. And she's like, well, as long as she doesn't come in that window. And I'm like, kind of ironic for you, former IDF member, to be talking about people caught in the crossfire. Interesting. Oh, suddenly you care about, like, hurting people. Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. We will always slander the... and it's not slander if it's true. We will always insult the IDF on this podcast.
Very true. So they're... But they're having this conversation. And suddenly, like, the bomb goes off because they'd like stepped into the other room. The bomb goes off and they run out, and Rufus like goes like slowly creeps around, looks out the window and gets like pulled out. And Joe is like, oh my God, Rufus. And she runs after. And then her mom is there and she like grabs Joe and they start fighting. We cut outside to Dean, who is the one who pulled Rufus out. They start fighting. And Dean is like, Rufus, listen to me. This is fucked up. And starts like explaining the situation. But we see like the camera is in Rufus's point of view. And it's like Dean is like grabbing him and his eyes are black. But it's like they're fighting. Rufus had a gun and they're like fighting over the gun. And Rufus is like, I am too old for this. Like, fuck you. You were a demon. He's like, no, no, no. I'm telling you, this is all a trick. There are no demons. Think about it. And starts like trying to go through all these things of like, why would this be happening? Think about all the signs of the apocalypse. Like, truly, you must have realized something. And he starts to get through to Rufus, who's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, no, you're right. That actually does make a hell of a lot more sense. I've definitely killed some people. Anyway, not going to deal with that too much.
Yeah.
So he's like, all right, he gets up. We cut inside, and Ellen and Joe have clearly just had the same conversation. And Ellen's like, okay, so we all on the same page? And Dean's like, I think so. And Rufus like nods along. So they're all cool. And Dean's like, okay, where is Sam? And he's like, he's locked up upstairs. So Dean runs upstairs and starts untying Sam. And Sam's like, Dean, it's the Horseman War. There's no actual demons. And Dean is like, yeah, we figured that out, but good to know. Happy we're all on the same page. So forces from both of these places are going to start coming to kill each other. We need to do something.
Also, when Dean's eyes are not black anymore and Rufus is like, oh, wait, shit. He's like, Dean, how'd you figure that one out on your own? He kind of like, he's like, aren't you kind of an idiot? Like,
yeah. I love that. But yeah, so they're like, okay. Sam and Dean are talking, and they're like, okay, so this guy who's pretending to be this guy, Roger, who's actually a guy who lives in town who is dead, and War has been masquerading as him. What do we know? Like, how is he able to do this? There has to be some trick, because we probably can't kill him. Like, you probably need more than we have access to kill one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. So they're, like, going back and forth, and Sam's like, it's the ring. That was what he touched, like, to activate his power. And Dina's like, yeah, it is the ring. So we gotta, like, stop him from using the ring. So the two of them are like, okay, our mission is basically to go stop War. Ellen, Joe, and Rufus are gonna try to stop the townspeople from, like, fucking killing each other, right? So there's a long, like, action sequence in which we see the guy who is, like, the ex-military guy is leading his little squad that includes, like, the priest. It includes this woman who is, like, clearly, like, 8 months pregnant, and, like, her family, not her family, but, like, her husband or whatever, and this, like, other woman and, like, a couple other people, and they're coming up to this house because they're gonna go in and kill everybody. And they're like, okay, we're gonna do this. Let's go. And they go up. The priest, like, runs out. A guy who's in the house, like, shoots at him. A girl runs out and starts trying to help him. And then Rufus runs upstairs and is like, I told you not to fire. And that means not to fire. So don't do that. So Rufus is telling the people who are, like, on that side to stop. And outside, Ellen runs up to where the priest is and starts, like, trying to help him. And she's like, okay, we need to give him, like, CPR. And the military guy grabs her and pushes her down and holds his gun up to her head. And she, like, fights him and is like, dude, there's no demons. Like, you're fucking crazy. Something is happening. We need to stop. So they're going back and forth fighting. He manages to pin her on the ground. He pulls out a knife. He starts going to stab her. And then we see Dean and Sam.
Oh, and he doesn't shoot her because he's just run out of bullets. So she's able to use the gun then to, like, wrestle him to the ground, but then he gets a knife out.
Correct. Sorry, this was a crazy sequence. So then we see Sam and Dean. They are, like, we see War walk towards that red Mustang that they saw And Sam and Dean like run up on him and grab him. And he's like, what are you guys gonna do? Like, shit has already started. Fuck you. I'm leaving. And they're like, okay, well, we know we can't kill you, but, and they use the demon knife to cut his ring finger off, and they grab the ring. And then we see from military guy's point of view, he's looking down at Ellen. Her eyes are no longer black. She turns back to normal, and he is like, oh fuck. Okay, so he gets off her. All the people start to realize, like, oh, we fucked up. And we cut back to Sam and Dean, and the car has just disappeared, and he's gone.
The mythology here is shaky at best. You're like, what? Okay.
Yeah, it's a fine sequence. It was one of those ones where I was like, I feel like this episode just could have had a second draft. Then I think that's pretty much it. So we cut, and Sam and Dean are sitting at a bench outside. The Colorado, quote unquote, Colorado mountains are sprawling behind them. It's a very pretty scene. And Sam is like, I've been thinking.
Wait. First Dean is holding the ring and he goes, so, pit stop at Mount Doom?
Shut up. I forgot about that.
So, I'm like, all right, nerd.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, he says that. And Sam kind of laughs a little. And then he's like, I've been thinking. I think, I've been so focused on, like, what happened and all this stuff. And he starts just kind of talking about where he's at and where everything has gone for the last, like, little while. And he's like, I don't trust, I don't trust myself right now. And I understand why you don't trust me. When that demon blood, or what I thought was demon blood, was there, it was all I was thinking about. I don't trust myself right now. And I think it's not good for me to be around all of this. I think I need to take a break from hunting, and I need to leave and leave you to do this, because I can't. And Dean is like, okay. And Sam's like, oh, I kind of like expected some pushback. And Dean's like, well, honestly, it's hard for me to do this job because I've been spending all my time worrying about you and not worrying about, like, doing the things that need to get done. So it might be good for you to take a step back. It's probably smart. And Sam was like, okay, kind of nods. He gets up. And Dean's like, hey, do you want to take the Impala? Which is fucking crazy.
Insane.
But Sam's like, because there's two things. But anyway, Sam is like, no, I'm all right. And he walks kind of off into, like, not like this super, super far distance, but, like, there's a guy who clearly, like, lives in town who has, like, a big trailer, and, like, hitches a ride with this guy and leaves. And the last shot is Dean watching as he goes. Then the episode ends. Dean offering him the Impala is crazy because it's like, oh my God, he really is so worried about Sam and loves him so much. But also, it's fucking hilarious to me because the Impala is the car that's all tricked out with the weapons and stuff. If Sam's not going to be hunting, he doesn't. Dean, you need that shit.
Yeah, like. Also, I'm so sorry. Great sentiment, but Lucifer is about to be on the prowl. Maybe now is not the time to, like, take a little mental health day. Like, maybe I don't think.
And, like, even if you are taking a mental health day, like, maybe we call Bobby, or, like, see if we have any other, like, homies who you can lay low with, or, like, just somewhere that you're gonna be safe. Because, like, angels might not be able to track you, but, like, you definitely have a price on your head, Sam. Like, it just seems silly. And it's also, like, they're gonna be back together again in, like, 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's so
or 1.
It's so odd. You're just like, what? Like, like, Dean, are you possessed? Like, I'm like, oh, okay.
No, it's just, like, such a random, like, and it's like, I understand Sam being like, I need to take a break, but you'd think that he would be like, I need to take a break after we've determined, like, after we figured out what's going on, or, like, I don't know. I know it's a TV show, and I know it's probably just for dramatic effect that he would, like, walk away in the middle of something. But you think it'd be like, let's figure out a way to get you settled, and then I'll call you if I need you. Yeah. Not like Sam's gonna get into a random car.
Yeah,
and
Sam's gonna
forever.
hitchhike. And I'm like, can somebody go take care of Bobby? Maybe?
No, that's what I'm like. Maybe Sam's whole thing could be like, I'm gonna be Bobby's like fucking caretaker. I know Bobby would probably hate that, and but, like, being around Bobby probably means hunting. But
he at least, you know, he at least needs some help getting, you know, accessibility in his house. You know?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I don't know. It just seems like not to be the person who's like calling someone selfish when they're clearly going through something, because I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I think Sam is being quite reasonable in saying, like, I need to step away from this. Like, I totally understand what that is for, like, his character, but it's just like,
it's kind of dumb.
It's kind of dumb. And I think Dean, like I totally get both of their points, but I'm also like, okay, like, this feels like we're putting in drama because we need drama.
Yeah,
like, it's drama for the sake of drama. It's not drama that, like, makes sense. And that is, like, I'm nailing it down as we talk about it. Like, that's one of the reasons, too, that makes me frustrated about these seasons going forward, is that it's, like, the reasons that they have issues with each other sometimes make sense, but their reactions don't.
Yeah, it's
because it's like, oh, we need there to be some buildup. We need to make something that's going to be dramatic.
It very much becomes a thing. And it's also a thing of they're like, and when Lucifer comes, it's going to be a big deal. And you're like, but we have to spread it out into even little episodes and have little conflicts or whatever. So the apocalypse is going to be real slow.
Yeah, it's like Lucifer's here. And in the last episode, they were like, hey guys, like, Cass is like, guys, we got to hit the fucking road. We got to do this. And they're like, but there's demons in town. Like, no, but why nobody gave a fuck?
It's like, oh yeah, and then there's demons. Yeah, it's one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. Can we focus on finding God? Like,
there is, I also just remembered another part in this episode, and this was like fucking crazy. It's so random, but when Bobby is in the hospital, Dean like goes down and gets an x-ray of his ribs.
Oh,
I don't know how he does, but we see all the Enochian symbols Cass put on there, and Sam looks at him and is like, what the fuck? Because it is like, they're literally carved into, like, noticeably carved into their ribs.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how did Dean just go down there and be like, can I get an x-ray real quick?
No, I think
please?
It's implied that it's an x-ray of Bobby, and that Cass did it to Bobby too.
Oh, really?
That's what I thought.
I thought it was like Dean went down and got an x-ray, because Cass never touched Bobby.
Cass would be really stupid if he didn't also do it to Bobby, but then again, this show doesn't make any sense, so...
Yeah, guys, you're starting to hear why we tell people in our intro that, like, this show is so you never watch Supernatural.
Because it's bad.
Because we were like, season 4 is, like, really good. Season 5 is when shit starts to hit the fan. And I really thought, like, while we were talking about season 4, I was like, maybe we're being dramatic, because I haven't watched Supernatural in a really long time. So I'm like, maybe, and I'm enjoying it. Like, I was enjoying it up until, like, this point. And I was like, maybe we're just misremembering, or because, like, the fandom turn on Supernatural was so strong, but, like, that it's influencing us.
No.
But I'm like, no, like, it does get bad after season 4.
It genuinely...
like, the acting, still really good.
Yeah.
The acting's good. The,
Damn, we haven't even gotten to Purgatory.
Yeah, the character writing is usually pretty okay.
There's
like,
some really, like, interesting...
dialogue is good,
yeah,
but, like,
there's some really interesting concepts that get brought up. Are they handled or executed well? No, they are not. No, they are not.
I'm hoping that I will enjoy it more, and that I'm just psyching myself up. Like, I'm gonna try to go into this with the mindset that I'm going to enjoy it, but I have a feeling I'm gonna be disappointed.
Yeah, the whole time you're gonna be like, oh.
But then I'm gonna be like, oh my god, Destiel.
Yeah, no, because that is the experience of Supernatural moving forward, is, good god, what are they doing now? Oh my god, Destiel!
No, literally. No. And you know what's crazy is that, like, one of my favorite characters on this show is from, like, a later season too.
Is it Charlie? Or is it Benny?
No, it is Benny. So I'm so excited to see Benny, but I'm like, I know it's going to be a dumpster fire, but I'm going to be like, oh my god, Benny! Oh my god, Destiel! Anyway, god, I hate this show. Do you want to take us out?
Oh God! Oh, we're in such hell. Call me Dean Winchester the way I'm in hell. Well, thank you for listening to the premiere of season 5 of our show and of Supernatural. For more Cursed Supernatural content, you can follow us on social media at Mystery Spotcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Tumblr. You can also ask us Cursed Supernatural questions in our Tumblr Ask Box or by emailing us at themysteryspotcast@gmail.com. As a quick reminder, we are still trying to raise money for a family to escape Gaza. We are trying to get Mohammed's fundraiser to at least 10K. The link to that is in our description. Share it around. Do what you can. If you enjoy listening to us suffer, please rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a comment on our YouTube channel or just tell a friend about the show to prevent them from watching Supernatural, please. Now that we've reached season 5, clearly we are backsliding into Destiel, so if you have a fic recommendation, you can send it to our recommendation form in our show notes. This is just for us. We don't tend to share it on the show, but we just want to have a place where you can send us what you like. If you want to hear more from us, we are also two of the co-hosts of RuPaul's Pod Race, a queer Star Wars and now pop culture podcast. Well, we are going to be doing some very cool non-Star Wars things that you can jump into. We're really excited about. And we'll see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, queer baiting things, the supernatural business.